Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the fourth part of the reading aloud and annotating video. So, the pages assigned for this one, I think, are page 63 to page 98. Again, for this one, we are going to be, picking out certain poems and reading and annotating those instead of the entire thing. Again, for y'all, I read the entire book, but during these videos to learn how to annotate and see how the poem's supposed to sound, we're just gonna be doing specific poems. Okay. So we're gonna start with Dad takes us to Krispy Kreme and tells us his favorite story. Again. Didn't Mom say no more donuts? JB asked Dad. What your mother doesn't know won't hurt her, he answers, biting into his third chocolate glazed Gruyere. So, third, what your mother doesn't know won't hurt her. I would underline that. That is how Chuck operates with his wife, JB and Josh's mom. And third, chocolate glazed Gruyere. That is a very good descriptive right there. Instead of just saying donut, they give you a specific one so you can picture it in your head, right? Good shooting today. We beat those boys like they stole something, he adds. We beat those boys like they stole something. Example slang. Why didn't we take their money, Dad? I ask. They were kids, filthy, just like y'all. The look on their faces after we beat them 11-0 was enough for me. Remember when you were 2 and I taught you the game? You had a bottle in one hand and a ball in the other, and your mom thought I was crazy. I was crazy. Crazy in love with my twin boys. Crazy in love with my twin boys. It shows how much he loves his kids and his family, right? When you were 3, I took you to the park to shoot free throws. The guy who worked there said, this basket's 10 feet tall for older kids. Kids like yours might as well shoot at the sun. Kids like yours might as well shoot at the sun. He had no faith, right? The stranger had no faith in the kids to be able to make baskets at the 10 feet tall. And then he laughed, and I asked him if a deaf person could write music. And he said, huh? Then took out his wrench and told me, I'm going to lower the goal for y'all. Remember, Dad, and then you told us Beethoven was a famous musician who was deaf. How many times do we have to hear the same? And Dad interrupts me. Interrupt me again and I'll start all over. Like I was saying, I handed both of you a ball, stood you between the foul line and the rim, told you to shoot. You did, and it was musical, like the opening of Beethoven's Fifth. Perfect timing with the bell, right? Da 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 da. Your shots whistled like a train pulling into the station. I expected you to make it, and you did. The guy was in shock. He looked at me like he missed the train. So this entire thing, I asked him if a deaf person could write music. That's again looking into how Chuck talks, right? And this thing was Chuck loves telling stories, right? That's like looking into tell stories. That's basically looking into Chuck's character a little bit more. He always tells the same stories, and he loves telling them, right? And this one right here, he did, and it was musical. Your shots whistled like a train pulling into the station, like he missed the train. That was basically a simile right there, right? So hopefully by now you should be understanding how to get into annotating and knowing how to read the poem, right? This poem is basically about Chuck, a look into Chuck and his character. He loves to tell us the same stories, and he has a great love for his family and his kids, right? And this was basically showing how he got his sons into basketball. Great story. Next poem is basketball rule number 3. Never let anyone lower your goals. Others' expectations of you are determined by their limitations of life. The sky is your limit, sons. Always shoot for the sun, and you will shine. Right? This is basically Chuck's advice, right? All of the basketball rules are Chuck's advice to his sons, okay? So whenever you read these, just know that it's Chuck talking to his sons and giving them advice, okay? This is basically Chuck telling his sons that the sky's your limit. Nothing can hold you back. If you aim high, you're gonna make it high, right? That's basically what it was saying. Next poem is basketball rule number 4. Here we go. Basketball rule number 4. If you miss enough of life's free throws, you will pay in the end. So again, this is Chuck giving his son's advice. And we know from the earlier stories that Josh struggles with free throws. If you don't know what a free throw is, I would recommend Googling it or looking at the basketball term PowerPoint that I uploaded earlier in the course. But free throws are basically free points. And if you make them, you get essentially free points. So it's saying if you miss enough of life's free throws, you will pay in the end. That's basically saying take every chance that you get. Never let a chance slip through your fingers because you never know if it'll ever come back, right? Next poem is Having a Mother. Remember, look at the formats, education, so that's emphasized. But other than that, having a mother is good when she rescues you from free throw attempt number 36. Your arms are as heavy as sea anchors. Right here, it is sort of saying why Josh loves his mother so much because she rescues him from times like this. 36, he is struggling with his free throw attempts for that night. It says, your arms are as heavy as sea anchors. That's a simile, right? But it can be bad when your mother is a principal at your school. It can be bad when your mother is a principal at your school. It's basically introducing more of the mother's character, right? Because she's barely shown up in the book so far. Bad in so many ways. It's always education this and education that. After a double overtime basketball game, I only want 3 things: food, bath, and sleep. The last thing I want is education, but each night Mom makes us read. It's a good look. It's something his mother makes him read every single night. But each night Mom makes us read. Don't know how he does it, but JB listens to his iPod at the same time, so he doesn't hear me when I ask him, is Miss Sweet Tea his girlfriend? Sweet Tea? Again, that's another nickname being introduced, right? He claims he's listening to French classical, that it helps him concentrate. Yeah, right. Sounds more like Jay-Z and Kanye in Paris. In Kanye in Paris. There's a reference, right? Which is why when Mom and Dad start arguing, he doesn't hear them either. Keep going. So this is basically a look more into the mother's character and how she always emphasizes education this, education that, right? She makes her sons read every night before going to bed. She's the assistant principal, so she obviously values education, as everyone should. So moving on. Mom Shouts is the next poem. Remember, look for format, just looks like a lot of dialogue. Ugh, right there. Mom Shouts, get a checkup. Hypertension is genetic. I'm fine. Stop high-posting me, baby, Dad whispers. Don't play me, Charles. This isn't a basketball game. I don't need a doctor. I'm fine. High-posting me, again, that is a basketball term, where she says, this isn't a basketball game. Don't play me, Charles. This isn't a basketball game. I don't need a doctor. I'm fine. Your father didn't need a doctor either. He was alive when he went into the hospital. So now you're afraid of hospitals? Nobody's afraid. I'm fine. It's not that serious. So, as you can see, hypertension is what he has. It's genetic, and Chuck's father had it. And Chuck is basically saying he was alive when he went into the hospitals. So maybe Chuck is afraid of hospitals, right? Fainting is a joke, is it? I saw you, baby, and I got a little excited. Come kiss me. Don't do that. Baby, it's nothing. I just got a little dizzy. You love me. Like summer loves short nights. Like summer loves short nights, right? That's a simile. Get a checkup then. Only cure I need is you. I'm serious about this, Chuck. Only doctor I need is Dr. Crystal Bell. Now come here. Then there is silence, so I put the pillow over my head because when they stop talking, I know what that means. Ugh. Only cure I need is you. This is basically a conversation between Chuck and the mom. Remember right here, it introduces the mom's name, Dr. Crystal Bell. It's basically just the mom telling Crystal Bell telling Chuck Bell to go to the hospital because she's worried about him because she has what Chuck's dad has, or he has what his father had, hypertension, right? And it basically just shows a look into their relationship and how they talk to each other, how they have fights and stuff like that. Next poem is Hypertension, another definition poem, right, as you can see by the format. So hypertension, a disease otherwise known as blood pressure. Remember, this is always the definition. Definition is always the first part. As in, mom doesn't want dad eating salt because too much of it increases the volume of blood, which can cause hypertension. So remember in that buffet scene, she took away the salt. This is the reason why, right? As in, hypertension can affect all types of people, but you have a higher risk if someone in your family has had that disease. That's why she's so worried, because Chuck's dad had hypertension. As in, I think my grandfather died of hypertension, and that is what killed him, right? So there's basically, again, the definition poem of hypertension. Hypertension is the disease that Chuck has, or what Christabel is worried that Chuck has, right? Next poem is, we are skipping ahead. We are in the second quarter now. Next poem is Conversation. Remember, always go back and read those poems I skipped over. This is basically just so y'all can see how to annotate and read the poem, okay? So Conversation. Remember, also look at the format. Right there, JB. Conversation. Hey JB, I played a pickup game at the rec today. At first the older guys laughed and wouldn't let me in unless I could hit from half court. Of course I did. All net. I wait for JB to say something, but he just smiles, his eyes all moony. Do that. I showed them guys how the Bells ball. I would underline that. I scored 14 points. They told me I should try out for junior varsity next year because I got hops. Hops is a term in basketball. Hops basically just means your ability of how high you can jump, okay? And this shows you how good Josh is at basketball, right? He's very good, right? He beat the older kids. JB nods, his fingers tapping away on the computer, chatting probably with Miss Sweet Tea, her nickname. I told the big guys about you, too. They said we could come back and run with him anytime. What do you think about that? Hello, it's JB. Even though I know he hears me, the only thing JB is listening to is the sound of his heart bouncing on the court of love. So right there, that's a big one. Listening to is the bouncing on the court of love. Remember the heart and the bouncing, comparing it to the ball on a court? We saw that in basketball rule number 1, I believe. That comes up again, but in a different format, right? So this is basically poem was basically about Josh talking to JB and trying to tell him what he did today and the game that he played, but JB's, distracted, talking to his new girlfriend, Miss Sweet Tea, right? The new girl. And how he's just distracted by her and just infatuated. So next poem is Show Off. Show Off. Remember, see that format? The format is familiar to what we've seen in the past, right? The up, the struts, stutters, slick sliding, sweet, right? So Show Off. Up by 16 with 6 seconds, showing JB smiles and struts, side steps, stutters, spins and sinks a sick, slick, sliding, sweet 7-foot shot. What a show off. So this poem is basically about JB's moves on the court, right? So they were up by 16 seconds with 6 seconds left, and JB is showing off, right? Those are all basketball terms. Sink, spin, sinks, sick, slick, sliding, sweet, 7-foot shot. That is an example of alliteration. And that is, again, a form of figurative language, right? Alliteration is basically a series of words together, side by side, with the same first letter. So S, right? Sick, slick, sliding. Sweet 7-foot shot. What a show off. So it basically just shows you that JB's sort of a show off, right? Josh also is as well, but this poem was about JB. Next poem is 90. I think this is the last one of this assigned reading. This is also the longest one. Mom calls me into the kitchen. As you see, the format is a lot of dialogue in this one, right? So let's get started. Mom calls me into the kitchen after we get home from beating St. Francis. Normally she wants me to sample the macaroni and cheese to make sure it's cheesy enough, or the oven-baked fried chicken to make sure it's not greasy and stuff. But today on the table is some gross-looking orange creamy dip with brown specks in it. So I would do this. Obviously, this poem already in the beginning is talking about what they normally do after games. You know, Chuck's mom, Crystal Bell. Not Chuck's mom. Josh's mom, Crystal Bell, cooks them food after, and it's usually macaroni and cheese or oven baked fried chicken, right? But this time it's a gross looking orange creamy dip with brown specks. Again, that's very good descriptive words to let you see exactly what they are eating. She have pita bread triangles. Maybe mom is having one of her own book club meetings. Again, I look into the character. She has book club meetings. Sit down, she says. I sit as far away from the dip as possible. Maybe the chicken is in the oven. Where's your brother, she asked. Probably on the phone with that girl. Josh, as you can see from the phrase, that girl, and how it's formatted like that, you can tell that Josh isn't the biggest fan of her, right? She hands me a pita. No thanks, I say, then stand up to leave. But she gives me a look that tells me she's not finished with me. Maybe the mac is in the oven. So that's the second time it comes. He's just focused on the food, right? Maybe the mac is in the oven. We've talked to you, too, about your grandfather, she says. He was a good man. I'm sorry you never got to meet him, Josh. So right there, that's a big one. He never got to meet their grandfather. And the grandfather they're talking about is Chuck's dad. Me, too. He looked cool in his uniforms. That man was way past cool. Sort of a slang right there. Dad said he used to curse a lot and talk about the war. Mom's laugh is short. Then she's serious again. I know we told you Grandpa died after a fall, but the truth is he fell because he had a stroke. Grandpa? Fall. But the truth is he died because he had a stroke. He had a heart disease. Too many years of bad eating and not taking care of himself. And so, before we continue, some of the stuff I would annotate after reading that is they lied about how the grandfather died. They didn't want to tell the truth. But the truth of how Chuck's dad died, Josh and JB's grandfather, is he had a stroke because he had heart disease. Remember that definition poem about hypertension? It is related to that, okay? And that is caused by too many years of bad eating and not taking care of himself. What does this have to do with anything, I ask, even though I think I already know? Well, our family has a history of heart problems. Their family has a history of heart problems, right? And all of this could be an example of foreshadowing. What foreshadowing is basically making an alluding to something that could happen in the future. Something in the future. The future. Basically making predictions, or not making predictions, giving you clues about what's going to happen in the future, right? Well, our family has a history of heart problems, she says, so we're going to start eating better, especially Dad. And we're going to start tonight with some hummus and pita bread. So that thing on that table was hummus. For my victory dinner, Josh, we're going to try to lay off the fried foods and Golden Dragon. And when your dad takes you to the recreation center, no Pollards or Krispy Kremes afterwards. Understand? And I understand more than she thinks I do. But hummus, really? But is hummus really the answer? So another thing is I understand more than she thinks I do. Josh is a very smart kid, right? He definitely understands what's happening. So in this poem, what's happening is a lot of dialogue between Josh's mom and himself. Basically what they're talking about is they're introducing the grandfather a little bit more and how he died, and how he died because of a stroke caused by heart problems, right? And again, hypertension, and that they're going to start eating healthier because that heart disease runs in the family, and Chuck maybe may have it, and he doesn't eat well, right? Golden Dragon, Pollard's barbecue and chicken, and Krispy Kreme, right? Those are his favorite places, right? So they said they're going to start eating healthier, right? And Josh says he understands, but come on, right? So again, that was the last poem in this assigned reading. Hopefully you're slowly starting to understand how to annotate and read, and annotate while you're reading, right? So if you have any questions, please let me know through, again, the message board, message on Schoology, or email. But other than that, I will see you for the next one, okay? Bye.